Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday, the 7th of October, 2022. Welcome to Hindsight, where we learn to be a better trader. We're going to take a look at the two stocks that I traded today, along with a couple of, discussion points about how I trade micros in the last couple of weeks, particularly around news announcements. So, PolyNovo, first things first, it had a move yesterday, and this is going to be a day 2 play today. I don't even know why it moved yesterday, not interested. I just don't mind trading some day 2 plays. Some guys in Discord were lucky enough to catch the short and push it to the downside. For me, I kind of just watched and waited for a range, and a range developed after the second candle. Third candle was green, so there's your range. From open, there's your bottom out. It tries to bounce, it comes back down. The idea was to short it, help break the range, and then just close it out on the same candle. So this one was 168.5, I believe, was the exit for this one, and 171 and maybe 171.5. I know there was a couple of short entries here, but it basically was just a quick 1 minute scalp. The idea was as well to watch it as it started to rally back to the upside. The idea was to pick it up at VWAP, but didn't get lucky enough to get filled or even just touched there, unfortunately. So on the way up, as volumes was coming, just scaled in a couple of orders and closed out at 179 or 179.5. The idea was to get out before the closing price of $1.80.5. And the idea was also to break this range here. So really there was a small bit of opportunity to break to the upside, and it was setting up nicely, not hitting VWAP, bouncing, volumes began to rise. And it's not like I put size onto this thing either. There wasn't too much opportunity to put size on PolyNovo, so I kind of just made peanuts on that move. And same thing, it starts pushing to the upside. See this candle, join the break of 180.5, and I think it might have been like a 5-minute hold, because this just didn't do anything. It sort of bounced off the retest here, so that's obviously the key level. So you got your break, you got your retest, and then just nothing. So I had to close out and then open the short. And unfortunately, this one was very late. I think it was 178 or 179 or 179.5. So a little bit late to the breakdown, but basically the idea was this level here is meant to be break, retest, rally, break above the recent pivot point. Real basic TA stuff. Didn't happen, so got into the short. The idea was to see what would happen at VWAP. Now, coming back down to VWAP after breaking recent highs, especially the 180.5, so key pivot point, you don't want to see it break down below that. You kind of want to see it set up and then rally to the upside. So for me, I was kind of skeptical that VWAP would do anything. And of course, by the time we got to VWAP, yeah, look, it holds, but nothing has happened. No high volume bounce. Worst case scenario, break even for me. But consolidated, tanked. Got out at 172. So this one was probably more luck than anything. There wasn't really anything behind it technically. Just the price action was kind of dwindling. It sort of just pukes once and then consolidates and pukes one more time. And that was just like, I don't know, it was just a weak sell-off, I guess. There just wasn't much behind it. And someone was asking me in Discord as well. It's like, right, got a short entry around here. VWAP, clearly, it's consolidating here. If it breaks VWAP, do I add on? And my answer there was no, because, well, the idea is that this late in the afternoon, this isn't even the afternoon, it's 11:30, but this late in the day, after the morning drive and the morning liquidity, I don't want to add on, because this is exactly what I said would happen. There'd just be one sort of big sell-off, one or two candles of selling, and then it'll just consolidate again. And if I'm lucky, I'd probably get somewhere here. And it's just like, well, it's not really worth cost averaging down for that. So for me, I was just happy with my order, let it go, let 2 dumps happen, close out, and call it a day for that short move. So nice move. Unfortunately, I didn't get size on this or anything like that. So as nice as a trade as that was, it didn't exactly, yield much in terms of return. Now, this next trade was a bit of an accident in the sense that because I use Iris Trader, I forgot to check VWAP. So as this popped, there was a volume pop here. It popped, ended up joining 17.5, which is an unfortunate entry. You know, could have been a couple of ticks less. But anyway, 175.5 was the entry. Kind of waited for something just to happen, whether it was just going to start selling off and then just take a couple of ticks a hit. But ended up breaking out to the upside. And I mentioned in Discord as well, I typed it out. I said, look, I'm looking for 179. Just based on the order book, just what was here on the book, what I wanted was a clearing of 177. I wanted not just a clearing because it kind of just hung out here for a couple of minutes. You can see the volumes were like meh. What I wanted was exactly this. Just some volume coming in to touch 179 and 179. Sorry, I think 179.5 maybe as well. But 179, that way it clearly goes through this 177 level. Then we pull back. And then the next target was somewhere between 177 and 176, ideally. Now, VWAP is a greedy target, I think, for a breakout like this. So a breakout with volumes above VWAP, pull back anywhere from this pivot point here, and pretty much between this range here. That was the idea, was an add-on here. I didn't actually put the add-on, but I was just talking out loud, basically, of a thought process had I missed the stock. But unfortunately, it just pukes, and no choice but to just stop out as it pukes below VWAP. It is what it is. It's really unfortunate. I guess that's just afternoon trading, but the setup looked really good. Technically speaking, it was perfectly fine, and then it just really ends up being chop. As you see, nothing really eventuates, and somehow it just ends up back above VWAP in the late afternoon. So that's Polynovo in a nutshell. Also really happy with basically every trade except that last one. That last one, I mean, I verbalized it. I typed it out. I was like, right, here's the entry. 179 should be hit before it pulls back. And that's exactly what happened, but I didn't have an order in at 179 to sell. I kind of just held onto it because I thought this was a shift in momentum. Based on the price action, of course, you can see in the last couple of days, you know, it's a nice uptrend generally speaking. I was expecting a bit more price action, maybe retest the highs of earlier today, but didn't eventuate and just actually flopped. So in hindsight, should have actually taken the target of 179, 178.5. And that was purely based on the order book and what was there. And you can see a nice volume pop as well. Knowing me, I probably would have closed it. Even if I did close it out, I probably would have just regretted it, but would have picked it up at 176 at the very least, and then 1755 as well. I would have had two orders in, one above VWAP, one at VWAP, just in case VWAP doesn't get touched. And that's Polynovo. We got Can Group, CANN. So what I'll do is I'll open up Weed, the ETF for Weed. I'm sure everyone here has heard already that what Biden's doing in the US is releasing people who are charged with possession for marijuana. So Weed just launches to the upside in the US on the ETF here. Now, this doesn't really translate to anything in Australia at all. Like this news has practically zero relevance to Australia. So this news announcement is significant in that everyone knows about it, but it's insignificant in that it really shouldn't affect our stock or our weed stocks in any way. So Can Group was from 28 to 30. It was a very straightforward trade. That was on match 28, gave it 2 minutes, managed to sell at the top at 30 cents. That's all it was. It was a very straightforward trade. You might think, well, what made me sell at 30? Is there some sort of genius play? No, it really just was a weak push to the upside. It didn't move quite like I was expecting it to. I was expecting maybe more of a push, perhaps something on the daily chart. More significant, I guess, the fact that it gapped up as well, 2 cents for a stock that doesn't have much of a range. That's one thing I pointed out as well, is this stock has like a 1.5 to 2 cents range. Keep in mind it gaps up 2 cents and then gains 2 cents. I mean, that's a 4 cent range effectively if you include the gap. So that was the thought process there, is that this stock just doesn't have any range to it no matter what. And this isn't a fundamental news announcement that's actually a company announcement. That's like some sort of company changer. You can see obviously the stock can move far more than 2 ticks, but this is such a weak announcement, such a weak fundamental reason for a stock to move. So yeah, I guess a little bit of luck, and thankfully there was enough volume to get out there as well at 30 cents. So those were the 2 trades for today. And I guess I just wanted to talk about 4DS and QXR. Now 4DS is a bit of a market darling for me. I really like the tech. I've been following it since 2016, or was it 2017? I think it was 2016. I got it around 2.3 cents and sort of just did some small trades on it back in the day. So I'm quite familiar with the tech and the company itself, and not in too much technical detail, but I'm quite aware of the stock and its technology. So 2 things. One is this trade here. Let's start on this trade here. This was 16th of August. I'll bring up the 1-minute chart. Now there's a rule that I have about microcaps, and that is if it hits 80% on a sell-off, there's a very, very, very good chance that there's going to be about a bag in profits intraday. Right? 85, 90%, you're basically guaranteed. That's just my opinion. It's very rare to find a stock that sells off that much in percentage, but when it does happen, that once a year event, it usually yields good results. Now this one, I butchered it intraday. I just butchered it, broke even. I might have even taken a loss on it, but anyway, really good move, 2536. I can't remember too much about the trades on the day. I think I might have made a video about it actually, but the point is, this is one of those announcements and trades that makes people uncomfortable. And I'd like to say my edge in micro caps, particularly on stocks that sell off, is that I understand how they function. I understand how they work. I understand the panic and the concern and the sort of gut-wrenching feeling that hits the pit of your stomach when taking a long position on a stock that's down 85%. It feels uncomfortable, but it's one of those things that I've learned to sort of ignore. It's an emotional response that I'm aware of, and I understand how to react to it. So that's just I guess a little tidbit that you guys, when you see trades that are down 80%, 85%, they're gapping down that much, just pay attention. And over the years, because it doesn't happen that often, so it might happen 1 or 2 times a year, but when it does happen, pay attention what happens intraday. Because this is a very familiar tale. It's extremely familiar. And of course, it does die off. This isn't something that recovers over multiple days, but it's just intraday, it's very good. Now, 4DS today, sorry, not today, 4DS a couple of days ago actually, had this move here. Now that was a play based on the explanation of this gap. Now there was some sort of electrical problem with the technology, with the chip, and basically on this day they didn't resolve it, but they found out what the issue was. So that's like one step to resolving the issue. One would argue that is a form of de-risking the company. And that's how I interpreted the news announcement on this day. So to bring up the 1 minute chart, this is a very straightforward buy the match at 2.8, closed out some at 3.1, and I'm not sure if I got 3.2, but I definitely got 3.1 on the drive to the upside. You might think that's not a big move, but every tick matters on a stock that's in the 2 cent range. Every tick matters. If you got 100k shares, if you got 1 million shares, every tick matters. So big push to the upside, strong volumes, but of course high shares on issue, and the sentiment overall for 4DS is pretty negative, of course, because that big 80, well over 80% gap down on the daily chart. So one has to keep that in mind as well. And of course you got this horizontal here that I think played a part. I didn't really pay too much attention to it. I was just focusing intraday more so than anything. Just taking a few ticks scalp on what sounded like a reversal of sentiment or a de-risking of the company. Now we have QXR on this day here. I don't trade MD news, so new managing director. Like no one fucking cares who the managing director is. When there's a new MD appointed to a company, a stock almost never moves because no one cares. Like, great, some guy comes onto the board, whatever. It usually doesn't amount to much. Unless you've got like a fucking Gina Reinhardt or some shit, it's just not going to matter. But in this case, you didn't get a Gina Reinhardt. I think you got a guy from LKE or something like that, or AKE, or one of the big lithium companies. Might have been QXR. I don't know. I recall that the market cap of the company was at least $500 million. And of course, you got a little micro capper here at $27 million. So the idea and the logic behind this trade is understanding it from a retail perspective, right? So let's bring up the 1 minute chart. Now I'll explain what I mean about the retail perspective. Now, this stock opened up at 3.7. A few dollars went through at 3.8. I'm buying this thing. A little bit on match, a bit as it came off, because my understanding is when I read this announcement, I sort of dumb it down and I go, what would your average retailer think about this announcement? Right? It's very smooth brain. Because keep in mind, again, nobody really trades managing director appointments. Nobody. Like, it's just not interesting. So for me to buy this announcement, there must be something in it that I believe retailers will latch onto. And a director from a $500+ million company, and look, I could be wrong, it could be $5 billion. I actually don't remember the company. I just remember that it was a significantly larger company than QXR. One of the directors there has come on board to QXR. Now, if you're a retailer, you're an average Joe, you're a taxi driver, hairdresser, barber, a dude that works at Woolies, doesn't matter. If there's a way that I could pitch a stock to them in real simple terms and language, would they buy it? That's how I think of these kinds of announcements. So the way that I thought of this stock, of explaining it to someone, is like, hey, you got a company that's worth $1 billion. Let's say it was $1 billion. So you got someone that was a managing director in $1 billion company. Well, they just signed up to work for a company or be an MD for, I don't even know if it was an MD. It was just a director, right? It was on the board. It's like, right, you go from this $1 billion company, this guy now joins a $27 million company. So what's the response there? And it's like, well, the retailer probably has flashing dollar signs in his eyes. He goes, wow, if he can help a company go to $1 billion market cap, for example, maybe he can take this $27 million company and also do the same thing. Right? It's very smooth brain stuff. It's not reality. It's not how the real world works, but it's how retailers think. And it's about understanding how retailers think. That is part of my edge. So I understand how this stock is going to move. At least I believe so anyway. Now, it was a little bit concerning, I'll be honest, when it didn't move for about half an hour. You know, you got a company announcement that I thought was absolutely stellar for retail pumps. Took half an hour to move. So that's a bit nerve-wracking when you're scaling into this position on an announcement and you're banging your head against the wall going, after 20 minutes going, why the fuck is no one buying this thing? And then there's the pop. Now, a large part of why these things don't move sooner and just get stuck in a bit of a range, a large part of it is because retailers need comfort. They need comfort because they don't like feeling uncomfortable. Feeling uncomfortable is buying a match that doesn't gap up too much. Feeling uncomfortable is buying it when it dips after the match on a news announcement. How many people are going to feel comfortable buying this at 3.6 and 3.5? Not many. You've got an announcement that you think stonks to the moon because it sounds so good. But then it sort of drops off a couple of ticks and then hangs out for 25 minutes before it moves. This is uncomfortable right there. This on the breakout, this is comfortable. That feels good because now you've got a high volume break to the upside. And then you got continuing momentum and liquidity. So it just kind of, it doesn't even really retest, pops, comes back down a bit, and then goes. So this, I'd say this is your comfortable spot. This is your uncomfortable spot. Now, arguably, one would say that it's safer to trade in this area and push it to the upside and join the momentum. I don't disagree with that. But I guess what I'm trying to highlight is that this is what I do with micro caps. I'm more or less showing you guys that an aspect of my edge is understanding micro cap stocks. And this is what I've been doing for like 8 years now. So I understand it better than most, I would like to think. And this is where I buy. And this is the difference between where I buy and where other retailers buy. So that's pretty much it. I hope some of this made sense. I hope some of it helped you guys out. Otherwise, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.